starts in Perek Beis. So you could turn to page 83.
Yeah, 1 second.
So page 83, we're going to go over the terms. Of course, I'd appreciate if you help me out. I'll say what it is and you'll tell me what it means.
The pressure is on.
The pressure is on.
It's like I'm having a vocab test in high school again.
So the first word on the list, page 83, are the terms.
Where's the cheat sheet?
These terms come from Perek Beis, chapter 2. I want to do Beis and Gimel now, then we'll continue the next ice. So the first word on the list is begam, a common word in Maimorim. What does begam mean? What? Defect, right. A defect. In other words, in Chassidus it's used that either a person through an avera can cause a defect in the neshama, or sometimes it talks about a defect in the spiritual realm. In a certain level in the spiritual realm, in the Maimer it talks about a defect in the 4 letters of Hashem's name. Number 2, tikkun. What? Fix. The opposite of you're the one that said defect, you're the one that has to say tikkun. Tikkun means to correct, to repair. Means if there is a pagam, an avodah that repairs that pagam. And sometimes we use the term a pagam is sometimes compared to like a stain, and the tikkun is like washing it away. But whatever it is, it's correcting the damage that was done. Number 3, zayin midus rois. Okay, you all know that. The 4 negative character traits. Number 4, le'umazeh. What does it mean when you see in the Maimer the word le'umazeh? I know that everyone knows the answer to this question, but no one's going to say anything.
We're just testing you to make sure you know the answer.
The opposite, right? So what is it referring to? When it says in Chassidus the opposite, so it's referring to klipa. In Tanya, the first words of chapter 6 starts off Zeh lu'uma zeh oso lakim. It's a pasuk. Hashem created this opposite of that, meaning klipa was created in a way that it reflects kedusha, or it copies kedusha. It looks like kedusha, so there should be free choice. So whatever Hashem created in kedusha, He created in klipa. So as a result of that, whenever you see the word in Chassidus lu'uma zeh, it's alluding to this phrase, this pasuk, and it's another word for klipa. And what does sitra achra mean? The other side, the same thing. The right side is the side of kedusha, but we say the other side is the side of klipa. Okay, now page 84. Klipas midyan, what does that mean? It's not the nation of midyan, but it's klipas midyan. What does that mean?
Separation.
Right, that's the next one. Wait until number 2. Klipas midyan, the klipa that's embodied in the nation of Midyan. This was a very important point that we made at the beginning of the Maimer, that wherever it talks about a nation in Chumash that opposes Klal Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, whether it's Mitzrayim, whether it's Midyan, whether it's Sichem, whether it's Oig, whether it's Plishtim, these are human beings, just like today, Arabs, terrorists, Russia, all these people are regular human beings, but there's a klipa embodied in them, and that's what's driving them to do evil. But each one is a different kind of klipa. So the word klipas midyan means the klipa that's embodied in the nation of Midyan. And what is that klipa? Number 2, period levavis. Separation of hearts. Levavis is plural for hearts, and period means separation, causing separation. Number 3, Sitra de Gedusha. What? Right. If Sitra means the other side, so Sitra de Gedusha means the side of Gedusha. Number 4, Hiskalulus. That's the key word in the Maimer and the key word in Sfiras HaOmer, Hiskalulus. And it's Hebrew. Not Aramaic, it's not Chinese. First, Kalus means inclusion. This point that he makes in the Maimer, that each sphere includes the other sphere, like we say in our counting of the Omer, Chesed Sheba Chesed, Gevura Sheba Chesed, Tiferet Sheba Chesed, that each sphere includes the others. That's the word Hiskalus. The word Hiskalus comes from the word Klau. Klau means general or includes. Number 5, Hischalkus. What does that mean? Right. It means separation and division. Okay, number 6, Eilam Atayu and Eilam Atikun, you know. Number 7, Spheres the Tayu, you know. What's 8? Anfin Mispardid. I'll give you a hint. Anfin means branches. I'll give you another hint. The Sparta means separate, right? Yeah. Separate branches. Right. There's a clip, as the spheres of Tohu are referred to as separate branches, just like a tree. It has one trunk, but then the branches become separate one from the other. That's how the spheres are separate one from the other. Number 9, Midah is the Tohu.
Emotional attributes.
Right. Spheres of Tohu is more general. Midah Tohu means specifically the midas of the world of Tohu, the emotional attributes, which starts with Chesed and ends with Malchus, the 7 attributes. Number 10. What is it alluding to when it says by Yimlich by Yomers?
If they rained and they died.
Right. So this is something very good. When we learned the Maimer, I didn't have these sheets, but now I want to show it to you inside. So let's go back to page, one of the first pages here, page, page 38 and page 39. This is Vayishlach, Pasha Vayishlach and Chumash Bereshis, and it's the Psukim Lamed Aleph, Lamed Beis, Lamed Gimel. So it's Bereshis Vayishlach. Easy to look it up as chapter 36, Pasuk 31. And look what it says. It's all underlined, so it's easy to follow. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. So it's talking about kings who were Edom. These are descendants of Esau. And then it says like this: Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. The name of his city was Dinhava. Then Bela died, and he was succeeded as a king by Yovel. The next pasuk, and Yovel died. He was succeeded by the king of Husham. The next pasuk, Husham died. He was succeeded by the king of Hadad ben Bedad. In other words, there's no details, there's no story here. All there is, he reigned and he died. He reigned and he died. So the Zohar says these are referring to the 7 spheres of Tohu, that they were there like kings, but then they were Shviras HaKelim and they all fell apart. But how does the first pasuk read? These are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before the kings of Israel. What did we learn about the world of Tohu? Which came first? The world of Tohu or the world of Tikkun? First came the world of Tohu, and that went through the process of Shviras HaKelim, and then Hashem created Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, and corrected whatever went wrong.
But how does that relate to, like, because Hashem created light first and then darkness? So how does that connect to that?
Actually, he created darkness first and then light.
Light was created before darkness.
Depends what day in the week. And depends what level of light. You know, in Chassidus, you can never find a contradiction. The answer will always be, oh, it depends what level we're talking about. Basically, there's actually a Gemara that talks about this subject. And the Gemara tells a story where the stories in Gemara, by the way, if you don't have deeper understanding, especially Chassidus, they're really very interesting. There's no way you can understand them literally. So the Gemara tells a story that there was one of the sages, one of the sages over the Gemara, was in a very, very uplifted spirit. And he said to his student, you can ask me anything you want, anything in the world you want. You can imagine someone would tell you, the Rebbe would say to you, ask me any question you want. You had to be swimming. Where do I go? What should be the most important question of my life? Guess what he asked? He asked, how come when you see goats running, the dark goats run ahead of the white goats? Could you imagine what troubles him at night, why he can't fall asleep? So the answer he gave him was, it's the way Hashem created the world. First came night and then came day. And that's why in Torah, we go by the night first. Today is the sixth day of iyar. What was last night? That's when it started. In the secular world, it's the other way around. Today is April 27th, I think. And until midnight, it's April 27th. But in Torah, it starts with the night, Shkia, once either Shkia or once the stars come out. Why? Because it says in Chumash, Vahi Erev Vahi Boker, first was night and then was day. Now, just to give you the simple explanation, I'm not going to go into what Rabbi Patil was talking about, but on a simple level, the reason why we say night comes before day, and that's how it's explained in this story, is that before any light could be revealed from Hashem, there has to be tzimtzum. Hashem is infinite. Hashem is included in himself. There is no light. Hashem is not like other things we know. For example, candles give off light. The sun gives off light. The stars give off light. The stars and the sun and candles don't choose whether they should give off light or not. They're so filled with light that automatically and naturally the nice light bursts from them and spreads over millions of miles. Even though Hashem has more light than anything in the world we can imagine, but nothing happens by itself. Everything is by choice. So for Hashem, when he chooses to give off light, already there has to be tzimtzum, because you're starting with something which is infinite, and Hashem is emanating something from himself, which is going to be more finite than before. So if tzimtzum comes before the light, then darkness comes before day. So this is the explanation which we always give in Chassidus, that the Gashmias has a higher source than the Ruchnias, because the Gashmias, their sources in the world of Tohu, and Ruchnias, the sources in the world of Tikkun, and the world of Tohu came before the world of Tikkun. So whenever you see something in Chassidus, and often this happens, there's no explanation, it just says these words, Vayimlich Vayomes. Right away, know it's alluding to the worlds of Tohu. So let's get back to the terms. We're on page 84. 11 is Eretz and Kalim, that we spoke about a lot. And 12 is Shviras HaKalim, we spoke about it a lot. 13 is Rapach Netzutzin, the 288 sparks, we spoke about a lot. What's number 14? Number 14 has three different words, but they're really all connected. One is Pei Vav, one is Elokim, and one is Hateva. Anyone know the connection between these three words? So what's the connection to Pei Vav? And what does it stand for?
Kim is like the name of Hashem. That's like finding that is really good like Teva.
So Elokim and Teva is the right connection. Elokim is the name of Hashem that conceals, and Teva, nature, that's what conceals. So nature comes from the name Elokim. What does Pei Vav stand for?
Is it a contract?
Yes, it is.
86.
86. Okay, how is that connected to the previous number, 288? That's a clue. If you remember when you left Mitzrayim, how many sparks did we elevate when we left Mitzrayim? Right, we elevated 202 sparks, And we were left with 86. And these are the 86 sparks that we've been elevating from Mitzrayim until now. And
Gematria of Hateva?
And it's the same gematria of Hateva and the gematria of Elokim. The only question you might have, how could Elokim be 86? The Kuf alone is already 100.
It's not a cup.
Very good. Okay, Tova's on the ball this morning. Okay. It's a hey. We only say Elokim, but it actually spelled with a hey. And the gematria of the name Elokim is 86. The gematria of the word Hateva, which means the laws of nature, is 86. And 86, this is the number of sparks that were meant to elevate throughout the Golus from leaving Mitzrayim until Mashiach comes. And as the Rebbe has already told us, Tavshin and Beis, in fact, in the Parsha of Vayishlach, where it talks about the worlds of Tohu, that we have finished elevating the sparks. So what are we doing here? I'm sure you all remember the answer from when you were in Mashiach class. It's not necessary to explain. 15. 15, I don't remember talking about it, but we learned in the Rambam that it's usher to live in Mitzrayim. You're not allowed to live in Mitzrayim. There's a pasuk in Chumash. It says, do not return to Egypt. Where did the Rambam live? In Egypt, yeah. So obviously it's like a lot of things in Torah, even though it says that this is permissible or this is prohibited, under certain conditions it is permissible, but the Arizal explains why is it that there's a prohibition to go back to Mitzrayim, because the whole purpose in our avodah is to elevate the sparks. Once all the sparks were extracted from Mitzrayim, we have no purpose to go there. The fact that according to halacha, there is permission under certain circumstances temporarily to go to Mitzrayim means that there's a possibility that sparks from other places, for some reason or other, will end up in Mitzrayim, and therefore there's something to do. But in general, Mitzrayim has been emptied out of its sparks, and that's why we're not supposed to be there. So the fact that Hashem spread us out all over the world in a way like we were never before, there's a Yidden in every country in the world, is because in that way we're elevating all the sparks that are. And one more point, which I guess we didn't talk about this in class, so we'll explain it now, is number 15, Ruchush Gadol. Anyone know what that means and what it's in reference to?
Gadol means big.
What?
I know the second part means big.
Okay, we have one word, Gadol.
I did half of the work. Someone else can do the other half.
Okay. Ruchush means possession. A lot of possession, a lot of wealth. These are the words that are used when the Yidden had to leave Mitzrayim. They were told to take all the gold and the silver that they can take. But the reason why I put it down here is because it says in Gemara, in Medrash, that the Eibush said to Moshe, we're getting ready to take the Yidden out, but I can't take them out yet, because when they go out, they have to go out with a lot of wealth. So I'm waiting for the plague of Egypt, the plague of the darkness, when they're going to be able to go in there and take all the gold and silver that they need to take. So Moshe Rabbeinu will say to Hashem, or said to Hashem, in the name of the Yidden, forget about the gold and the silver. We want to go out. Let's just leave us. Let us leave. So Hashem will say, I can't do that because Avraham Avinu is going to have a complaint to me. I promised him that the Jews will be slaves in Egypt, but they'll go out with great wealth. And then he'll say, look, the first part of the promise that they're going to be slaves, you kept. The second part of the promise that they'll go out with great wealth, you didn't keep. So I have to wait a little bit so I can give the great wealth. So the question is that what it's all about? About the gold and the silver, and because of that, it's worth it for us to suffer in Mitzrayim physically and to be in a sort of the worst kind of spiritual, you can almost say like a cesspool. Egypt was the most immoral place in the world. Why would we be there even another minute if we don't have to? So Chassidus explains the great wealth was not the gold and the silver. It was the sparks that they have to elevate. The sparks were in the gold and the silver. In other words, when they went out of Mitzrayim, the fact that these items were transferred from the ownership of Mitzrayim to the ownership of the Yidden, through that they were elevated into Kedusha. And that's how the sparks were extracted from Egypt into Kedusha. And that's the wealth that we were waiting for. Okay, I'll do the other ones later. And we'll go back to starting a new Perik, which is Perik Yud Aleph. Back to the Sefer. We're starting with Perik Yud Aleph. Now, Perik Yud Aleph, he's going to give, just like before, he explained something which was, this is sort of a manifestation, it's one of the symptoms of Midyan, what we learned about yesterday, that he can't interact with another person, even though he showed how important it is to interact with other people when it comes to learning, how important it is to interact with other people when it comes to Avodah, but a person who's a Yesh and has the clip of Midyan will unfortunately lose all those benefits because they just can't interact with others. And they think that the reason is because the other person is not fit and not on the level that I can talk to, but the real reason is division. The real reason is Midyan. Now he goes into another one of those, and that's Yud Aleph. Yud Aleph is on page 82. Just like when it comes to Inyan of Aveda, things that are being done for self-refinement, he can't join and he can't work together with another person because he gives no value at all to the other person's Aveda. In other words, the other person, he just considers him worthless in that sense. He doesn't consider the other person as someone who's working on his self-refinement. And therefore, how can I talk to that person? We're not on the same page. He minimizes the other person's Aveda, which means that he will reject and look down even on the good that he does have. Which means, like every person has good and has things that are negative. And he looks at the negative because he's human, so he has some negative things. And as a result of that, he just dismisses the whole person. This person's worthless. And even the good that he has, he gives it no importance. The fact that he finds a fault in the other person, even if the fault is something superficial. It's not something that's essentially connected to the Avodah, but he found some fault in him. He will magnify that negative thing and he'll expand on it. He'll be talking about this a lot, make a whole issue out of it. He'll be humiliating the other person because of the negative thing that he has. In other words, the negative will completely take over, and that's what he'll be focusing on. The Kolshkein, and certainly and especially if he has a negative character trait. The first example was he doesn't even have negative character traits, just something that he does which is not so perfect. He'll take that little something, a little dot, and magnify it. If you look at a little tiny thing, little fly or little ant on a magnifying glass, you might think it's a monster. Depends how big the magnifying glass is. Wow, it's huge. You take it away, I can't believe it. This little thing, I can't even see it. So we have this nature in ourselves, and that's why many times people have anxiety or all other negative feelings. They take something and they focus on it, and they magnify it, and they exaggerate, and it gets bigger and bigger as they go along. But really, there's nothing there. So this is the way he's treating the negative thing in the other person. But Koshka, how much more so if what he finds in the other person is something which is really a negative character trait, because nobody's perfect, so he has a negative character trait. Because of this, he will decide and sort of rule that even the good that he has is ayin ve'epes mamish, it's absolutely no value whatsoever. He will have the evil exaggerate and that'll sort of override all the good, chas v'sholem. Acho estakina eina, he looks at the other person as if he's a non-existent entity. I'm sure it doesn't happen to anybody that's in this room, but you must have heard there are such people out there on planet Earth that sometimes they see the other person has a certain fault. As a result of that, that takes over completely. That fault is the way they define them, by that fault, and therefore even anything they do that's good is worthless. So they won't allow it to give them any substance in his eyes. And therefore I can't talk to this person. The truth is, what's wrong with it? Sometimes you do feel, oh, this person did something which is wrong, and it's so bad that all the good he does really doesn't matter, and it's worthless. And unfortunately, many educators and many parents make this mistake also with children. It's very common that a parent will tell a child, you're not listening to your parents. It's a mitzvah to listen to your parents. All your chitas is worthless. All your davening is worthless. All your learning is worthless. If you don't listen to your parents, everything you do is worthless. Unfortunately, what happens very often is the kid says, oh, really? Oh, so I might as well stop doing everything else if everything what I do is worthless. Is it really true that your davening is worthless and everything else is worthless? Chas v'sholem. It's not true. And now he's going to explain why it's also not true to look down at the other person because of that. The fact that he does serve Hashem when he davens, which means remember I told you the word oved means a person who doesn't just daven. Oved, it's a term, if you ever heard this term, Chassidim use the term, this person is an oved. An oved means someone who didn't just daven. He used to spend time in daven. He used to focus on the meaning of the word and how it applies to himself. And the davening was something which uplifted him spiritually. And here's a person that is an ovid. So he davens with deep concentration. He studies Torah. He observes mitzvahs. And this is primarily what he does all day. That really is what he does, what defines him. The fact that he has a negative character trait, because he didn't correct this yet. What does it mean? He didn't correct it yet? Yes, Nadia.
Just a question. So knowing all this about the yesh, how they see other people, how they see themselves, how can we not look at them in a completely negative light as well?
At the yesh? And they must have some good qualities also. In other words, this person that he's describing, remember we said in the beginning, he's also talking about someone who serves Hashem and davens and learns. In fact, that's why he looks down at other people, because they're not like him. But he has a character trait, which is yeshus. So whatever principle he's going to apply, how this person should be looking at others, that should apply to us, how we should look at him. Yes, they have yeshus. But on the other hand, they daven, they learn, they do this, they do that, and let's not put down the good because of the negative. And it explains it a little bit more why we're saying that. So it says like this: first of all, every person was born. There's a pasuk, iyar pera adam yivoli. It's a pasuk in iyar. Every person was born like a wild young donkey. Don't get offended, because every person was born like a wild young donkey. And basically what that means is you see children, they're wild, they're mean, sometimes even sadistic, and they hit each other and they grab things from each other and all sorts of interesting things that they do. And that's just the nature of children. And who made it that way? Hashem, he created us that way. They have no choice. They're just little children, 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and even older. Which means the metchilas leidase, when a person is born, einay mesuken, he's not born as a refined person. Why did Hashem create us that way? He created us for the purpose that we should, through avodah, become refined people. In fact, Hashem created a person. So if a person is born that he has a natural tendency to anger, a natural tendency to arrogance, a natural tendency to jealousy, it's Hashem put that nature in me. These are in simple English, these are the genes that I have. But why did Hashem give it to me to work on? But the fact that I have it is something which was these are the presents that Hashem gave me. And he gave it to me to work on it. Shalzen Nemar, and reference this, it says, Yimeish Noiseinu Bohem Shivim Shana. The days of our years, which means the amount of years of a person of a full life, is 70 years. The word Bohem is Oisius Behema. Again, I want to show it to you inside. We say this in davening actually on Shabbos. So let's take a look at the words. They are here it is in page 50. So it's a chapter of Tehillim, but this chapter of Tehillim is something we're saying, davening. And we say it also at night, Shema, before going to bed. Here it's underlined on page 50. It's in Yeshiv B'Seser, Kapitel Tzadik, chapter 90. Yemeish Noiseinu Bohem, the years of our life is number 70. In other words, basically it's 70 and there's also 80 and more. But what does the word Bohem mean? So the Rebbe says here in the Maimer that the word Bohem has the same letters as the word Behema, which means an animal. Behema is Beis, Hey, Mem, Hey. So it has all the letters of that word. And what is it referring to? Midas Harois Aktivim Shal Nefesh Bahamis. It's referring to the natural negative character traits of the animal soul. In other words, the reason why Hashem gave us 70 years, because we have an animal soul that has 7 natural negative character traits. So we were given 70 years to refine the 77 natural character traits. That's why we're given 70 years to elevate the 7 natural negative character traits. The Efsher, page 85, it's impossible. You can't expect a person to correct everything at once. There's a pasuk which is also quoted quite often in Chassidus. Ma'at agar shena. While we're at it, let me show you the other psukim just to see the source. Page 49, you have the pasuk where it says that a man is like a wild beast, like a wild donkey. That's how he's born. That's from Iyar. And on top of the page, you see it's chapter 11, pasuk 12. And on page 48, you see the other pasuk where it says nobody's perfect. Ein tzaddik baretz. There is no one who's wholly righteous on earth, that it always does good and never sins. Yeah.
It's like it's not on topic of the mimer, but why do we say that we have a potential to live 120 if it says 70? Like the years man are 70.
Well, you see, right after it says that there's also 80. So obviously it means 120 is because it says in Chumash, initially when people were created, they lived for 6, 7, 8, 900 years.
Right.
Then Hashem was the flood, and Hashem changed it, and the complete life of a person is 120. That's where it comes from. But when he says here 70, it's like saying a certain major part of my Avodah is completed at age 70. And then at 80, there's something more. And not every 10 years every decade, so to speak, is another stage, another level in my Avodah. But 70, it says here, that's like a certain major part of my Avodah was completed. I think I told you this once. There was someone who told the Rebbe he just turned 70, and he just feels a lot of anxiety because it says in Pirkei Avos, when you're 70, that means you're a saver, that's old. So the Rebbe said, when you would turn 40, it says Ben Arbaim Labina, when you turn 40, you get real wisdom. Nothing happened, right? So don't worry, nothing will happen now either. Okay, so on page 51 is a passage that says Ma'at agar shani mipanecha. This is talking about the time the Yidden will go into Eretz Yisrael. They're going to conquer the land. So Hashem says, I'm not going to have the nations driven out of the country at once. It'll be gradual. Why? Because if not, then the animals will fill up the land. Which means if all of a sudden the place becomes empty of people, before you get a chance to reoccupy the land, there'll be animals there. By the way, I don't know if you remember, but during COVID, it was all over the news about certain places in the world, because everybody was hiding in their homes, animals started to come out and they were occupying the streets.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So what?
Still occupying streets here.
But so ma'at means here it's talking about Eretz Yisrael. On a personal level means you can't conquer everything at once. Gradually, one thing, then another thing. So here you're looking at a person and you say, wow, he's not perfect. This guy is worthless. How could you say that? Yeah, he was created by Hashem like you, with all sorts of faults, of flaws in his nature and his character. He's working on certain things. Just because he didn't change everything, that's why you look down at him. It doesn't make any sense. That's the way a person should be sort of speaking to himself and understanding that the fact that the person has these negative character traits is not a reason to look down at him, and definitely not a reason to dismiss all the good that he has. Because to correct that, we know how much it requires a lot of effort and a lot of hard work in order to change a negative character trait. You have to work hard in davening, bizbonus belakus, meditate on godliness, bizgabris hamidus el nefesh elokis. You have to get the midus, the character traits of my godly soul, to overpower and weaken the character traits of the animal soul and refine that. And that's a hard work, and that takes time. In fact, when a person works on something and they say it didn't change, the truth is it does change. Every time we work on something, it makes a certain dent. What we're not seeing is the complete change. But the truth is it makes a certain dent. And let's say a person works on something and you don't see any change until 10 years later. It doesn't mean that for 9 years and 364 days, nothing changed. And on the last day of the 10th year, something changed. It's not true. The fact that things changed after 10 years is because every day there was a little sort of microscopic change. And eventually you see the complete change. Okay, so we'll have to learn more about this tomorrow. But this is, again, another manifestation of the Yeshus, of how he dismisses the other person and dismisses all the good that they have, which is, of course, the wrong thing, and that's a result of Yeshus. Okay.